Welcome back, everybody. It is Wins Above Fantasy, episode 175. Welcome to those of you joining on the live stream. For those of you guys on the podcast, happy Thursday. We got part two of the show we did last week, focusing on pitching this week, trying to find some value in pitcher changes. Going to be looking at some approach stuff, pitch use, different things in terms of movement and velo. It's always easier to do with pitching because there's so much to look at in any given start. And this is the time of year where finding value on some of these guys can bring an entire season of benefits to the squad. So I know, Steve, I need it. While I am actually performing well in the industry leagues, I am down astronomically in my home league, dead last, looking for any will to live. It feels like anything that can go wrong is going wrong. This is really a nightmare for me. That's not what this show is about, but I feel like you and I are usually cruising in pretty good shape in our leagues that matter most, our home leagues. And I had to commiserate because I didn't tell you offline that I'm at the end of the road here in terms of having spirit in my home league chat, all of that good stuff. So we're not going to focus on that too much. But anyway, this show is great because you can find some of these pitchers out on the wire. I did add one of these guys. We'll get to it in a minute, but roster wise, it's everything from guys 80, 90% owned down to 1% or 5%. So it's going to be a great show. Steve, hopefully you're in better spirits than I am over there, but how's it going, man?
Yeah. Sorry to hear that. That's always tough. I know the first few weeks, especially in a head-to-head, if you're have only one or two category wins, it seems impossible. But I mean, there's weeks like that spread out throughout the whole year is kind of what I've told some other friends that have been off the slow starts and things like that. So it's early. It's too early to look at anything as far as standings. We're what not even 10% into the season, just about that. We got a long way to go, so I would not be too hard on yourself just yet.
You're a great friend, Steve. You're a great friend.
Yeah, and that's what I'm here for. But this is exciting because there's a lot of things that I think are more actionable. We always have to caveat or mention things with a grain of salt when we talk to hitters, just because we're only 10, 15 games in the season, and we don't want to take too much from very, very small samples with hitters. But that's not necessarily the case with pitchers because you could see a lot even from one start as far as repertoire changes, velocity changes, all that stuff is actionable. And I think it's why these pitchers come up every single year, and guys are, the Spencer Schwallenbach after a few starts last year, it's like, okay, all systems go. We know enough after that small amount of data, and with this, there's going to be a lot of actionable info. So we're covering everything that you need to know as far as velocity, shape changes, stuff changes, pitch mix changes. All of this stuff is very, very valuable in a small sample. So excited to get into it. Think we have some really good names that might be buy lows, guys that you think would be streamers that may be more than that now, and even guys that I think at least we have one on here that I think consider a buy high. So I'm excited for it, and think we got a really good list of names that should be out there in a lot of 10 to 12 team leagues, even guys with higher roster percentages, especially a few that are just coming off starts, like in Yahoo and Fantrax, those numbers spike up and then drop off after a start, right? Because guys stream them. So they may be back on your wire after a good result or even a mediocre result. So excited to get into it and think we have some good names here that could be long-term fixtures for your teams this year.
Well, that's our segue because we're not a daily show. We don't typically do today's big news or anything, but I think we got to kick it off with Chris Bassitt and what the heck is going on here. All of a sudden, the 36-year-old is looking, whether you're on the back of the baseball card or some of the underlying metrics, like the number one pitcher in the league, which is crazy. And that's sometimes you scratch your head. None of us were, kind of pushing Chris Bassitt as a breakout. There's always been things that we've been interested in Bassitt, but today he spoiled Spencer Strider's debut by twirling an absolute gem, 10 strikeouts, just 3 hits, no earned runs against the Braves on his way to a win. And that has just been more of the dominant season that he started out with. He's now at 23 and a third innings, 31 strikeouts, just 5 walks, a .77 ERA, and a 107 whip. Looking at Bassitt, I mean, I was watching a little bit on my lunch break today because I have Strider in the home league that we're not going to talk about. And that's they were talking about just like how deep his pitch mix is, and that he was one of the guys who had to adjust the most to the pitch clock because he was such a chess player with pitch selection and all that stuff. And there's even fun videos out on Twitter that when the catcher calls for a pitch that he likes, he visually gets excited, like he nods his head and he's like, yeah, let's do that. So Bassitt, he has 8 pitches in the repertoire, and he has had a deep, arsenal for a long time. But if you look at year-to-year changes, it looks like the biggest thing is, and I could be wrong on this, but it's a little bit less on the usage. There are some like tinkering things, but the biggest change is the movement profile of many of his pitches, but especially the split finger, which is up probably of all of his pitches. That's the biggest usage change. It's up to 10% this year. It was at 4% last year. But that split finger and his curve, which is like a 76 mile per hour curve, it makes hitters look silly when they guess wrong on it. But those pitches have an enormous amount of break that they did not have last year. And he always had, pretty good, okay movement, but now it looks like he's really tapped into something. He talked about how in the offseason, the staff was open to their feedback and how he's grateful that they worked with the pitching staff on changes that they wanted to make as well. So it sounds like, I mean, you don't want to overreact. It's just 4 starts here. So this could very well be a sell high as well, Steve, just because, he's 36 years old. In terms of like velocity, he still is like a 91 mile per hour pitcher, but it's hard to ignore what he's been able to do here with 9 strikeouts against the Mets, 7 against the Orioles, now 10 against the Braves. And it kind of comes on a foundation that I think we all know that Bassitt is an innings eater, and for the most part, kind of a pitcher's pitcher, like we talked about with all the selection and sequencing and all that. But really interesting. I had heard some stuff about like some arm slot changes in the offseason. So we're left to wonder if this is real, or if it's completely a facade, or kind of the cop out is that it's most likely somewhere in the middle. But what do you think about what's happening with Bassitt right now? He's a guy that I think we liked like 3 years ago and talked about on WAF, but it's been a while since we've been excited about him, and never could have imagined he would be like an ace level pitcher, which is what he's doing right now.
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of shine that was worn off of Bassitt after last year, considering it was, a little bit less on the volume. He was only 171 innings compared to the 200 and the 181 he threw the year before. The ERA was about a half a run higher than you would have hoped at 4.16. And the indicators all lined up with that, right? Like the results were worse, the process seemed worse. Everything was down across the board as far as underlying swing strike rate, CSW. The velocity was, nothing special still. So it's not like there's something that you can, bank on or hope would turn around, right? It's a lot easier to write off a one rough season with a guy that throws 95, 96 that you could buy into the stuff, right? Bassitt,
Right.
you sort of bought into the volume, the kitchen sink approach, and hope that you get by with that. If 1 year goes off wrong, that's how he goes from someone that you target as like a 3 or 4 starter to someone that goes mostly undrafted in like 10 to 12 team leagues. But Bassitt's probably rostered in most now. I know that he's exactly a case of a guy that started today, that probably had a rostership percentage jump at 78%. I doubt that goes down further after how good these first 3 starts have been. But I think it's a bit interesting because what I think people sort of get lost with is looking at pitch mix changes, and Bassitt I think is a perfect example of this this year, right? Like there's nothing drastic that stands out, like a few percentage points here, like he's down 2% on the sinker, up 1% on the curveball, up 2% on the changeup and split, right? Like there's just a little tweaks here and there. But when you break it down by handedness, I think that tells a larger story. That's something that Lance Brosdowski, that's a plug that we do every single week, it seems.
For sure.
Subscribe to his Substack. He's absolutely amazing. Breaks down. And that's important because you can really see how approaches are changing um, on how they handle batters each year, right? Like Chris Bassitt thrown 20 four-seamers to left-handers this year. After all of last year, he only threw 109, right? So he's already essentially a fifth of the way there, a sixth of the way there in far less than in just 3 starts, right? So he's throwing more four-seam to left-handers. That pitch has a 33% put away percentage and a 20% whiff rate. He's throwing more sweeper to right-handers. He's thrown 23 sweepers to right-handers after throwing 177 last year. So, a bit of a percentage jump there. And that pitch has a 53% whiff percentage. So things like that may not jump off or be as obvious when you just look at the overall pitch mix change, but then break it down by handedness, things that Nick Pollock, Saris, Ron Sprosgowski do all the time in their write-ups. Stuff Plus this year, the metrics that's referenced on span graphs that Saris puts together now is updated and has handedness. So you have a Stuff Plus. You don't see it, but in the input for Stuff Plus is different handedness, right? So it does a better job of capturing how guys are approaching each handed hitter, because you really do have to have 2 different approaches, right? It's really the difference between being a starter and reliever, and a good starter at that, when you're able to handle both sides of the plate. So you need to have that approach, and I think that's what Bassitt is doing, and he has those 7 pitches that he's been throwing this year, and he's able to do that, which is encouraging, right? He saw the results last year, changing some things, and I think that we could buy into the 2022 Chris Bassitt of 180 innings, a 3.4 to 3.80 ERA with, hey, maybe a little bit higher of a K rate too, right? The swing strike was all the way up to 13%. He's never had a swing strike rate above 10%. In all of his seasons in the big league. So that's pretty encouraging with Bassitt. So I like him. I think he should be absolutely rostered in all leagues, and is essentially, I trust him as a middle rotation guy. Again, that could be kind of boring, but super valuable.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, is like looking at Nick's list, on this past week, like tier 7 had Luzardo, Bubich, Dustin May, Gavin Williams, Jeffrey Springs, Grant Holmes. Like, does that feel too lofty for where you're putting Bassitt rest of season? Like, would you have him a couple tiers down with like Nick Pivetta, Brandon Pfaadt? Because right now Bassitt's 69th on the list, but surely he goes up after kind of showing that he's sustaining this.
I think I like a lot of those guys that you mentioned more. Holmes was encouraging. I like who was a few other guys that you just mentioned there in the second tier. Like
Dustin
I
May,
think
Gavin
Pivetta is
Williams,
gonna
Jeffrey
rise
Springs.
again. He had another really good start. Like Pivetta seemed like, I don't know. I'm always a sucker for Nick Pivetta, right? And he seems to do this
Same.
every single year. Maybe Nick just knows a little, how it's going to go a little bit more. But Yeah, I think Bassitt should be in like the 40s or 50s. Like that's kind of where I feel like
I agree. I agree.
he comfortably settles in that 2021 to 2023 seasons, and that's a good pitcher. Like that's a guy you want on your team. Um, that should be able to eat a bunch of innings and give you some good numbers and decent strikeouts while doing so.
Okay. Well, yeah, there might even be a sell high opportunity with if anybody's kind of bought into the level that he's a top 30 pitcher, if that's where we
Sure.
both like him. But nonetheless, very, very interesting and exciting for Bassitt and the managers who took a gamble on draft day. Uh, Getting to a much bigger gamble, Tyler Mahle is one. He was an OG WAF guy back on the Reds that we loved all the swing strike rate. It feels like we've been burned by Mahle enough to where, talk about the sheen wearing off a little bit. I think the velocity has come down in recent years, and I think he was TJ as well, right, Steve? That was in the middle
Yes,
of all that.
yes.
Okay,
Came back
but
last year. He missed like most of 2023 and 2024.
right, but now new home with the Rangers, and so far so good. 4 starts. He's got 21 strikeouts over 19 and 2/3 inning. Sub 1 ERA and a sub 1 WHIP for Tyler Mahle, age 30, so a little bit more in the arm than Bassitt, for instance. So long as he could stay healthy. The fastball is getting more whiffs, but again, the velo is also at that like 91, 92 that we're not excited about at all, especially with bad extension. That said, he is locating it up, which we know that high lock on the fastball is a great thing, and Mahle has that. I think spending time with it, Steve, it looks like the reintroduction of his cutter, which yeah, you talked about handedness. He's using this against lefties a lot. So I know Nick's talked about this as being the season of the cutter.
Mhm.
And you need that to, opposite handed hitters will kind of sit and turn on sliders or curveballs, but a cutter is kind of a nice option for them. And he's used that cutter. I think it's up to, yeah, 10% use now, and that has a
Mhm.
43% whiff rate. So some interesting things here from Mahle. I think obviously there's some regression coming, but unlike Bassitt, Mahle's 40% rostered. So interesting here. Curious your take. I think I'm a little more skeptical on this one, but it's a guy who's tweaking things, and it's a name we were excited about in the past. Got a pretty good team behind him. What do we think on Mahle?
I think so. It's interesting. The cutter, it's not like as hard as I would hope that it would be. The cutter, in my mind, and I think how Nick approaches it is it gives you another hard option, right? Like um, you're not sitting four seam when
Gotcha.
you can't just sit four seam um, and expect like a straight rising fastball. It's just another mix to throw things off. But his cutter's at 85, which is more of like a mix, I guess, versus slider and split, where the slider's at 83, the split is at 84. So maybe it works in that same sense, just as a different option to the slider. He does throw it more to lefties, which is good. That's a good combat versus opposite-handed um, hitters, which is always nice. I don't know. I'm part of me is interested because the swing strike rate is up to 13.3%, back to like the 2020 when we were interested in him. It was like around 11 when we really liked him in 2021 with the Reds too. Dropped a bit. The velo is back to the pre Tommy John level, right? It's not anything that's eye popping, but at least it's back to the 92 that it was in 2023 and 2022 prior to the injury. So that's a bit encouraging. Maybe there is a bit more here. Maybe this is like pre Bassett start today if he does go out and shove again. It may be sort of the last chance to get him if he's still available in 40% of Yahoo leagues. I don't know. This does seem like a bit of like a location heater. He has a 116 location plus on Fangraphs, so I don't know how sustainable that is if he just like it's just been a few starts where he's just been absolutely dotting his spots and hitting exactly where he wants to go. So I don't know if I'm that in, but I think that might be a mistake, and I may miss the boat on it. But yeah, it's encouraging that he's had these good results, and if he is available and you're absolutely like desperate for some upside starting pitching, then I could be in on Mahle, even though he may not have been a guy that I was going out and targeting despite the early season success in his first 19 innings here.
Yeah, I think if you're looking for reasons to be encouraged, that fastball that he does locate so well up high also has the best movement profile that it's had since 2021. So he gets above average vertical break and or vertical movement, and also horizontal break on that. And that has not been the case for the fastball, where both of those have been true for a few seasons. So yeah, it's a really good foundation fastball in terms of like swing and miss stuff. The typically fastballs, you get excited if it's got like a 25, certainly 30% whiff rate. And so far this season it's had a 41% whiff rate. That's on actual swings that are misses. But so it's tough to hit despite him not having extension and despite him not having a ton of velo on it. So yeah, that's Mahle. I think I agree with what you said on Bassitt. It seems like a good spot to maybe invest and just see how the next start goes, because otherwise it might be too late for a guy that's 40% rostered. So we'll talk a handful.
You go Bassitt over Mahle.
For sure. I mean, I'm excited
I
with
would.
Bassitt.
Yeah,
Like I was watching the stuff today. I think for Bassitt, I'm tempted. Like I draw the line at the Bubich Luzardo territory, certainly Shane Baz, but I think I would actually take Bassitt over Gavin Williams, over Jeffrey Springs, over Dustin May. I think there's enough there that's, it hasn't been accidental for 4 straight starts, and you're going to get innings that you might not get from some of those other guys for a variety of reasons, age for Springs, or just, babying the arm a little bit for Dustin May or some of those other guys. So yeah, but I do think that Mahle belongs probably a couple tiers behind, maybe in that like after Pavetta, but before like your Merrill Kelly, Nick Martinez.
Yeah.
So probably more like mid 60s if I had to like throw a dart.
Arrow up on both these guys. I would agree with
Yeah.
your rankings on both of them and ordering above all those names. Yeah.
Well, we got some addable guys in the next section, under 10% rostered, but we're going to take our first ad break and we'll be right back after this. All right. So Steve, getting over to, like I said, some less rostered guys. Luis L. Ortiz, the latest and greatest from the Cleveland pitching factory. Ortiz was like kind of had a quiet 15 starts last year, where he had a 3.32 ERA and a 1.11 WHIP, but it was the stuff and the swing and miss that kept excitement at bay, at least for me personally, where it was, I think it was around 7 strikeouts per 9. He actually has pretty good velo, unlike the last two that we talked about. Sits around 96, but it kind of climbs up above that. And yeah, it goes slider, cutter beyond that. But so far this season, we've also seen some excitement, mainly after the last couple starts that weren't too great. It looked like more of the same against the Royals. 5 2/3 innings, 10 strikeouts, just 1 earned run. So now that swinging strike rate, at least on Pitcher List, was up from 10% in 2024 up to 13.7%, which is league average. I know those stats are computed differently across sites, but 13.7 is league average from the way that Pitcher List calculates. And yeah, I mean, he's got a pretty deep arsenal as well, 5 pitches, and we usually trust in Cleveland. So at just 6% rostered, you look at this 10 strikeout outing, the Royals are a pretty good offense. Curious where you're at on Luis L. Ortiz.
Yeah, he's always been a name that's been on my watch list, just because Saras over at the Athletic and of Rates and Barrels has always had Luis L. Ortiz as a sleeper, even back to his Pirate days, and
That's
before that, I
right.
think he was in the Yankees organization. I think he was part of the Clay Holmes trade, the original one. I think I may be wrong on that. Someone fact check me on that, but has always been someone that I've been interested in. But it's been basically an unmitigated disaster, and I think a lot of that, or I know that a lot of that, is due to his splits. He has struggled with lefties mightily. Um, Last year, he had a 9.5% strikeout minus walk rate. That's horrible
Uh-huh.
versus lefties. He had a 5.29 FIP, a 4.79 XFIP. He had a 1.69 homers per nine. He gave up 12 homers in 64 innings to lefties last year. That's absolutely horrible. Now it looks like he may have solved, or at least help solve, um, some of this lefty issue. The swing strike rate versus lefties this year is up. As far as pitches that he's been throwing more to lefties, he has thrown 20 changeups to lefties this year after throwing 16 to them all of last year. So he's already
Wow.
surpassed that. That total as far as change-ups to lefties. And it's not absolutely great. It's just an 18% whiff rate. You would like to see that a little bit more, but hey, if it's another weapon to help him get opposite-handed hitters out, just a change of pace with against the four-seamer that he throws a lot to lefties, like a tunnel off that. He is throwing the cutter a bit more to lefties as well. That has has had okay results. Not great, but it's been a small sample. And honestly, you just need something in the repertoire that could work at all, considering how bad it's been versus opposite-handed hitters over the last few years. And yeah, I trust in your organization, right? Like, this is a guy that got targeted in the offseason. I believe they traded for him, right? This offseason it wasn't just a signing or anything like that. And I'll try to pull up
Yeah,
his
I'm looking at that
transaction
too.
log there. But I believe in the Guardians, and guy that has this massive stuff and seems to be tinkering with his pitch mix versus opposite-handed hitters. That's been his downfall. I'm interested. Yeah, he was in the Spencer Horwitz trade. He
Yeah.
was traded for Spencer Horwitz this offseason. So exciting that this is happening. I don't know if I'm saying that I
Must
don't know if
add.
I'm comfortable saying that, like, yes, he's going to be rosterable all year, but I want to find out, and definitely would want to stream him in the short term in good matchups, and in like deeper NFBC leagues. Yeah. I'm sure he was scooped up a lot after that performance last week, but
His
it's
next
worth a flyer for
Yeah,
sure.
his next start is on Friday. If you guys are listening, still time to add at Pittsburgh. So a little
There you go.
revenge match there,
Absolutely.
and a good place to hit. And Bryan Reynolds is on my roster. I can tell you he won't be doing any damage to Ortiz. So yeah, I think that's an interesting
The
stream there. I know that
the one
they
after
have
that
been better.
or is versus the Yankees. So
Mm,
you know,
yeah,
if
approach
he
with
does
caution.
well again, and it'll be two starts in a row that he's been really well, then you kind of got to hold him to find out. But I mean, other than that first start of the year, it's been pretty good. I know the K's weren't there versus the Angels, but the Angels also have been better than we have thought recently. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that one was respectable. So yeah, Luis L. Ortiz, that's a good one. And I was trying to pin down where I remembered. So when you said Pittsburgh, it was like, oh yeah, I do remember he was on our
yeah,
radar. But then yeah, had a kind of a quietly productive but boring 15 starts last year, and then this year it looks like there may be reason to get excited, especially with the handedness you were talking about. I'm going to jump over to because we had Bryan Woo on here, but I don't know that good luck getting Woo in a trade. I think more than anything, just a quick note, in addition to the fastball velocity being up, the slider usage is up, the slider velo is up. This one seems like, it's happening right now for Woo, like we were hopeful. So hopefully Woo can stay healthy and help everybody make good on that investment, because he was a draft day investment for sure. But everything looks great for Woo. Want to move to another kind of low rostered one though, Steve. Andre Pallante. For good reason, we don't pay a ton of attention to some of the Cardinals pitching. And I don't know that Pallante is ever, I think the upside for him is more graduating from a Toby to a Holly in Nick's little vernacular there. But I do think that it's watch list worthy. And he starts tomorrow night or Thursday night against the Mets. So you guys may want to just check in and see what happens there, because so far in 3 starts, Pallante has a 2.20 ERA and a 104 whip. And what's interesting to me is he's had this floor of a really good ground ball rate. If you've watched him pitch, he has a really wonky delivery. It looks like he's literally shoving the ball, like kind of a shot put style, but he has decent velocity similar to Ortiz, maybe a little bit less, but league average velocity. It's the slider that has my attention, because some of these gifts have looked pretty nasty on the slider. And he's throwing it more this year, and the swing strike rate has ramped up from 41st percentile up to 90th percentile on that slider. So now I think he jacked up the usage from like 16 up to like 24%. And the fact that it is getting swing and misses, he's got 13 strikeouts and 16 in the third, which isn't great. But if he can have the ground ball rate, Busch is a great place to pitch. It's not the worst division to pitch in. And yeah, I think just if he has another really productive one against the Mets, I think we're going to start getting into territory where Pallante is rosterable as kind of a glue guy at the back of the rotation. Like I said, he's not going to be an SP3 or 4 by the end of the year, but there could be value for a guy that's like a ratio stabilizer that has, nothing on strikeout upside. So wanted to throw Pallante in because we haven't talked about him much, Steve, and the slider kind of has my attention here because it's what this show is about, right?
This is one that we talk about, throwing your better pitches more. You could just see the slider arrow just going up on his pitch usage chart year over year. Couple that with the fact that his swing strike rate has jumped from 8.3% to 12.2%. Yeah, that's a bit interesting. I wish that would be translating more into the actual strikeout and walk rate. It's just a 19.7% K rate, and it's still a 10.6% walk rate. Like, you kind of could have lived with the 9.9 and 9.4% from 2022 and 2023 as far as the walk rate goes with Pallante. But overall, like, his strikeout minus walk rate, I think, is actually worse than it was last year, despite the increase in swing strike rate. So, yeah, it's exactly the same. It was 9% last year, 9.1% this year. But some things under the hood, like you're saying, with the slider usage change, maybe that means he is sacrificing a bit of command, which is sort of just putting the pieces together and doing some guesswork there. But it's definitely for deep leagues and guys where he's going to be available and you're absolutely desperate, like Eddie Buzz was saying in the chat, where you're in an 18-team league and need to scoop up any available guys that are there. Maybe Pallante is a guy that's there, that's starting to throw a slider more. And you kind of see these things where guys get used to throwing these pitches more, their walk rate spikes, then they're able to get a better feel for it, and it improves as the year goes on. Like Michael King last year is the perfect example for that for me, right? Like, he had that start where he had 7 Ks but like 8 walks like early on in April, and people were like, this Michael King experience isn't going to work. Well, it worked, and it still is. It just needed some time for him to get used to his new expanded repertoire. There's things that goes on, like there might be short-term pain for long-term gain. Maybe we're seeing that with Pallante, but it's interesting that his swing strike rate is up and he's throwing the slider more. Has a decent velocity. Definitely at least worth the watch list, like you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's Pallante. Yeah. I know he was going farther out of the zone with some of the breaking stuff on like low lock. So I think there's an intention to maybe get some of those chases up. So yeah, going from Pallante, kind of a low stuff guy, to about as high stuff as it gets with Edward Cabrera. This is the ding ding ding, the Van Burnett home league ad, because he is starting tomorrow, a day game versus the Diamondbacks. And yeah, so far the one start we saw from Edward Cabrera for the Marlins against the Nats, it was just 5 strikeouts in 5 2/3 innings, a couple runs against the Nats, but the stuff not only looked excellent, the fastball velocity is up there with the best in the league. The changeup has always been something that everyone is, it's been the pitching ninja pitch for him. But talking to Lance Brozdowski, he highlighted that Cabrera's curveball looks altogether reinvented, and it has double the amount of the vertical break and horizontal break that it had in the past. And he also talked about his approach change to righties, talking about how he threw last year 52% four seam and changeup to righties last year. And that is all the way down. Those two pitches are all the way down from 52% to 12% this year, where now he's throwing slider and sinker to opposite-handed hitters here, or opposite-handed hitters, same-handed hitters,
Same-handed, yeah.
And so, yeah, all these things together, I think with Cabrera, it's still the big question on control, right? Because he's been very high walks guy, and that's that's been the case so far, but it's just one start. And I think this is the type of guy, Steve, to where if it all clicks right, Miami's kind of been a pitching factory in their own right. And it feels like for 2-3 seasons, we've been waiting for Cabrera to truly like break out. I know Thomas Nestico has hyped up Cabrera as well as like an obvious breakout pick. Just 5% rostered. I'm in. I am holding my nose, especially in that league where I'm at like rock bottom. I need something special, but I think he is the type of guy that could be kind of a difference maker if everything breaks right. I'll be honest, I was surprised it was just 5%, but maybe if he has a big start tomorrow, that will change. What are your thoughts on Cabrera here?
Yeah, I feel like I'm always in on Edward Cabrera and waiting for this to happen. Like no matter how often he gets hurt or has starts where he walks 6+ guys, I'm still in. The stuff is just that good. And the Marlins also totally revamped their pitching development team this offseason. So it's completely new, which is great for a guy like Edward Cabrera that has all the stuff in the world, can't necessarily find the zone at times and just does not know where the ball is going. I know Pete Bendix, their GM, came from Tampa. Tampa has had excellent success, and we'll get into a few more guys here later, with guys that have low command, guys like Tyler Glasnow, guys like Ryan Pepio, that they give one target to, and they're able to get the most out of these guys with not only good command, but bad control, right? Like command is putting the ball where you want it. Control is just being able to not walk guys and find the plate, right? Cabrera struggles with the control part often. So it's exciting when you see tweaks like that, right? And like if the slider is a pitch that he has great command of, that's great that he's throwing it essentially as his primary pitch to righties, right? It's he's thrown 13 of them to righties. No other pitch he's thrown more than 8 times. It's a small sample, but hey, that slider was his least used pitch last year, right? If that's something that he can command and that he's using as a primary pitch to right-handed batters, that percentage you'll see shoot up as he has more starts here. And there was even some signs last year that were pretty good, and he just couldn't really stay healthy at all. It was 96 innings, and it was the best. It was one of his better walk rates in his 4 seasons at 12%, right?
Good point. Yeah.
So maybe there's some bit of improvement, right? That was coming off the 15% walk rate in 2023. So yeah, talk about a guy with upside. This is Edward Cabrera, and I would absolutely want to see what happens here. Doing it versus Arizona is a little bit maybe too risky for my profile. I just think Arizona is a pretty good offense, but hey, like Cabrera has the stuff to have a 6 strikeout, 11K game. And if you have weekly waivers, like you're not going to be able to grab him if he does do that versus Arizona, or it'll be hard to do that in a first come first serve league. Someone could add him in the middle of the game, right? If that's going on, so you kind of got to find out, right? Maybe even bench him if you can, just to see what goes on here, because there was a lot of interesting stuff that went on in that first start here for Cabrera. So yes, to answer your question that you put on the rundown, I am ready to get hurt again on Edward Cabrera.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go back 4 or 5 years at this point, but throughout the minors, I mean, some of his like K per 9 was 13, 14, 15. So, he does have that level of swing and miss stuff. And yeah, I mean, it all comes down to, I think, the control, if not the command. And if he can do that, he'll get deeper into games, all that good stuff. Still probably not going to get the wins with the Marlins that you'd hope for. But I think if you are desperate for strikeouts in some of those deeper leagues, Cabrera is a great option. Moving to Hayden Wesneski, Steve, another new environment guy here. And, we thought it might be, or I thought it might be Arrighetti, where we're kind of gambling on the Astros to just develop pitchers like they do. And Wesneski is the one, just 37% roster, who so far so good. And I believe his next start is, what do we got? Yeah, Saturday at home versus the Padres. So that will be a test. But so far we've seen 3 starts from him, 21 strikeouts in 18 innings, 4 ERA, a .72 whip. But Wesneski's got, we knew he had stuff with the Cubs. We were excited about him, but now that he's kind of got a full shot at, making 25 starts this season, I think you have to assess what all you got here. He's a fastball, sweeper, cutter, sinker is the primary stuff in the repertoire, but the sinker is getting more whiffs this year. He's throwing the cutter more to lefties, and he has a new curveball this year as well. So he's done a handful of things. I know on Nick's write-up, he was kind of talking about the that he's or no, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. That was the next guy we're going to talk about. Where is that new stuff enough? But yeah, I think mainly it's some of the tweaks he's making for left-handed hitters and a possibility for him to take a step forward with good extension that he has. So curious your thoughts on Wesneski here. I don't have any shares, but I think at 37%, he's a prime example of those 12-team leagues, probably along with like a Tyler Mahle, where you might have to look at these two and make a decision. So where are you at with Wesneski?
I feel like this is a guy right up your alley, a guy with like good swing and miss, good extension. Maybe it's missing a bit of the velocity, but it's good enough at 94, right? Like right on average. It's crazy. It's still crazy that 94 is an average fastball. Insane where
I
we've
know.
got.
You're
But
right, though. The extension that plays up, that you view that as
yeah,
like a 96, 97
yeah.
in
Like look at
actuality.
how it makes Joe Ryan's 92-mile-an-hour fastball like the best one
Right.
in the league, right? Yeah, it wasn't a question of the fastball and the sweeper even. Like those are two elite pitchers, but he's another guy like Luis Ortiz that's been the stuffest. Like, these two pitches look great. Like he has the out pitch that we'll talk about with the next guy that was important here in the sweeper, right? A 35% whiff rate percentage pitch. Like that's a great thing to build off of. It was just a matter of how are you going to handle lefties. Now he's throwing the sinker more to lefties. He's throwing he's throwing the cutter now more to lefties. mixing in a curveball and a changeup that he did not have at all last year. He really only threw 30 curve changeups last year. He's already thrown 15. Did not throw a curveball at all last year. He's already thrown 13 to lefties. So that's good. The Astros are another organization where I know there's been some questions back and forth with how much of those smart people are still left in the organization, but I think in the pitching end, they're definitely still there. Like, look at what happened with Yusei Kikuchi last year. I think with Hunter Brown, with how bad his start
Yeah.
was, with getting the most out of Arrighetti, I think we're seeing it
Yeah.
again with Wesneski, and it's encouraging that we're actually seeing those pitch mix changes and approach changes to opposite-handed hitters. I think that's sort of like a theme of the show, right? Like all these guys had platoon issues with
Yeah.
opposite-handed hitters, and they're putting together tools that are exciting to see, right? Like they're changing the way they're handling weaknesses. You can do that by increasing, your best pitch, adding pitches versus opposite handers, and the results look good. Like the 12.9% swing strike rate for Wisniewski, the 30.9% walk rate, 4.4%. Sorry, the 30.9% strikeout rate,
Yeah. I was,
4.4% walk rate.
yeah.
That's it for me. Like that's enough. Like Wisniewski is a guy that out of all these guys, I know it may not be the least rostered guy. He's at 37%, but I would want him on my roster. Probably the most out of the guys that are
Available like
under,
at all.
40% or so. Yeah.
Yeah, I am Wesneski over Tyler Mahle. And to the walk rate, he had talked in the spring about tweaking mechanics for more like consistent control and everything. Which I know some of that is narrative and it's confirmation bias, but early goings 4.4% walk rate, and that's been at 7 and 8 in past years. His zone rates are
Yeah.
up, so if there was kind of a slight mechanic change to help with control, which doesn't seem shocking when you go to a new organization to work on something like that, I think we might start to see the floor raise for Wesneski, and enough reasons with the handedness and the new pitches to where it's a higher floor and a higher ceiling, which is everything you want, plus the extension, all good things. So yeah, 27-year-old who's been kind of destined for the rotation, but had just gotten peppered in some starts with the Cubs. He was always fighting with somebody, even Justin Steele a couple of years back. So now that he's got a full run, I'm actually pretty excited here. So yeah, I think looking at on the last list, Nick had Wesneski at 64. But I think, again, I don't have an issue with him above a Bowden Francis, a Brandon Pfaadt. I think kind of in that range of like, somewhere between Pivetta, Hicks, Holmes. I draw the line there, though, because I know Holmes had a great start this week. But yeah, it's a great name for sure. And we got two others, one that's right there in that same section of the list that we'll talk about next, but we're going to take our second ad break. We'll be right back after this. All right. So Steve, Max Meyer, I feel like he was one that you were following a little bit closer in spring. You kind of had him earmarked, and so far so good. 27 strikeouts over 24 innings, a 2.63 ERA, a 1.13 whip. Had 8 strikeouts today as we record on Wednesday against the Diamondbacks. Granted with 3 runs there, but Max Meyer, talk to me about what you're seeing here and what kind of changes are happening under the hood.
Yeah, I have Max Meyer absolutely everywhere, so I am pretty encouraged by this start. And he was the guy that I was hinting at. Like, Saras talked about it with, I believe, Lance Brzezowski this week on Rates and Barrels. Like, if you have that one out pitch, that's a great place to start, and that's what Max Meyer had in that slider. It's essentially why he was drafted 3rd overall in 2020. That pitch was just that good, and it was just a matter of filling out the rest of his repertoire around injuries that came up. And it looks like he's finally doing it. Yeah, the slider is still absolutely amazing at a 44% whiff percentage. Using it as his number one pitch, as he should be. Decrease the usage on his 4-seamer a bit. And I think added a sinker, sweeper, that aren't great pitches, but just other options, right? And the fact that he has a slider that he could spin so well, I'm sure the sweeper won't be or will at least be at an average pitch. You would hope that there was a little bit higher of a swing strike rate on that or in a whiff percentage, but hey, adding those things to his repertoire where he has that elite pitch, it has me excited. He's throwing that slider at 90 miles an hour. The fastball velocity is up to 95. That's going to help that play up, even though it's not the best pitch in the world, right? The changeup looks pretty good too. He's throwing that at 89, right? So all of this high stuff, high velocity, it has me excited, and I'm glad that I have him in the places that I do, and I'm really excited for what he could do if he could stay healthy over the full year. A 12% swing strike rate, the strikeout rate at 26%, walk rate at 7%. That's another thing that's like, yep, that checking the boxes. That's good for me. And the Diamondbacks are a good offense. I think it was a great result. I think there was 2 solo homers in there, and I'm encouraged for Meyer and glad I have as much shares of him as I do. And if he is available in that 54% of Yahoo leagues, I would absolutely be looking to add him there.
Yeah, I mean, we spend so much time talking about like the tinkering and the usage changes, but like taking a step back for Meyer as like a big picture outlook of evaluating him. We no such thing as a pitching prospect, and how many times have we gotten super excited and gotten burned? But like you said, with the pedigree that he comes in at, I'm so impressed by the fact that like most guys in an off season, you get excited if they increase their velo or if they add one new pitch. He increased his velo across the board and added 2 brand new pitches that he was throwing 2% of the time last year and is using 25% of the time. So it's almost like, this guy, like, what's he sleep like 4 hours a night and then just gets up and like goes to work. I mean, it gets me excited for the long-term prospect for Max Meyer, just that he's even capable in one off season of expanding to that level. And, I would not put the book out on him that the sinker or the sweeper is, forever going to be an average
in its final
pitch.
form.
Yeah. Like, and he's already a good ground ball pitcher. So for him to introduce a sinker, I think that could only help that. So yeah, I'm all in. I'm sadly do not have the shares that you do, Steve. But I think Meyer is super exciting for this year and for beyond as well. When you look at a guy who's 26 with not a ton of mileage at the majors on that arm. So yeah,
Great
that's
home
Meyer.
Park.
Yeah, exactly.
The new pitching development team there in Miami is exciting. So a lot to like with Max Meyer. I'm pretty excited. Like I could see him being one of like the biggest risers and like a guy that's drafted early next year if he can keep this up.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I'll let you take us home on this next one too, because Joe Boyle is another guy, another name that I feel like is Saris rates and barrels one, but he's been like the I don't know, just this mystery box unicorn for like, it seems like 18 months. People have been like, oh, Joe Boyle, like he's the one, but we haven't seen much of him. And when we have seen flashes, it's looked so erratic that you're kind of like, almost like when Andrew Abbott came up and we were like, oh, it's 15, strikeouts per 9, but will it, sustain and everything. And then we finally got a great start for Boyle with the Rays, 7 Ks, 5 innings. And then he gets sent back down to everyone's surprise. So now he's just 1% rostered. This would be a stash, but get us excited about Joe Boyle here, because whether you got prospect slots or again, just a watch list or a deeper industry league, like how good could this be?
I'm pretty excited about Joe Boyle. There is a repertoire change. He ditched his sweeper and curveball. He's now throwing only that hard gyro slider and added a new splinker, a changeup that goes, changeup sinker thing that thrown 93 miles an hour. It has 2 inches of vertical break, 16 inches of arm side movement. The only other splitter with more drop in the league is Yamamoto's. Like, that pitch is absolutely nasty. From watching that start earlier this week, it looked so good. Yeah, there was still some shaky command. Nick Pollock did an amazing breakdown of it. He was his pitcher breakdown of the day after he started, and he was right. Like, the target, he just did not like. It was calling for a pass ball down in the way. It was a fastball dotted up and in. Like, yes, it was a great result, but it was absolutely not where he wanted the ball to go. Like, he still has no idea where the ball is going. But as I referenced earlier in the show, the Rays are amazing with this type of pitcher. They fix Glass now, right? They gave him the one target and basically said, hey, throw all of your pitches to this target and let the movement and nasty stuff take over, and it'll move to where you want it to move. They did that with Pepio. I know Pepio's had a bit of a rough start there, but still excited for him and is of this mold, right? Like, low command guys, high stuff. And I think Joe Boyle will be sort of the same thing. The fact that he's optioned to the minors, honestly, like, I'm like, great. Like, hopefully people are dropping him because of that. I'll be happy to pick him up and stash him and hope that he is available or is back up soon. And I think he will be. But yeah, the stuff is just so good. That Splinker's absolutely incredible. And I'm super excited about it. But I think it's just a perfect fit with the Rays, and of course the Rays traded for the guy with like the most electric stuff and high strikeout stuff and absolutely zero grade command. Like, they should also get Edward Cabrera while they're at it. Like, that's the only guy that probably has more walk and command issues than Joe Boyle does. But hey, the Rays have a track record of it working with this type of guy. So I'm not saying he'll be Glass now, but I could see Pepio. I could see that sort of result.
Yeah, what's wild with Boyle, 6'8", you immediately assume that he's got the 7-foot extension, but he does not.
No.
Nonetheless, the fastball velo is at 98 miles per hour. So it's
Mhm.
like in some way, shape, or form, this is a 6'8" pitcher coming at you with absolute gas. And yeah, I trust the Rays far more than we did the Athletics to get the most out of this. And yeah, I think, the slider is kind of a work in progress, but the fastball there is a great foundation. And then, yeah, like the
Dude,
Splinker, all
look
that
at this, look at the plot location for his slider. Like, it's up.
that is
It's
wild.
crazy.
It's
It looks like
so
where a sinker or four seam should be. It is up in the zone.
right. And it's the Glass now is the perfect comparison because yeah, there are some that are the early Glass now, I should say, because there are some that are just like look like they're hitting the batter in the shoulder, and other ones that look like they're in the dirt by the catcher's feet. But yeah, effectively Wild would be a great goal. And I guess for that rotation, so we got Littell, Pepio, Bradley, Rasmussen, Boz. I mean, Rasmussen hasn't been able to stay healthy all the time, and I don't know that like Zach Littell.
Yeah, it's
Is
Littell.
he gonna block him?
I think Littell was good again today, or he was bad at some points. Yeah, he was decent today versus the Red Sox.
Okay.
So
So it
it's
might be a
tough.
minute.
Yeah, it might be a minute or an injury, unfortunately, but we'll see. I think he's a better or has more upside at least than Zach Littell.
Yeah.
I know Littell had a great run last year too, and even this year hasn't been too. Actually, yeah, this was like
He got pummeled, I
his
think,
first good start, or
right.
the one start he got absolutely destroyed.
Yep.
So we'll
Good
see.
name though. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, that signs us out. I mean, we had a good list of names here: Bassitt, Mahle, Luis L. Ortiz. Quick shout to Bryan Woo, Andre Pallante, a deeper one. Edward Cabrera, complete low floor, high ceiling. Wesneski. Make sure he's not available in your leagues. I think that's one of the bigger ones. Same with Max Meyer, but that should be going up after the 8 strikeouts today. And then Boyle rounding out as a stash. And like you said, Steve, for any of our listeners who aren't subscribed to the Lance Brozdowski Substack, like the extra shout out there, he does such an awesome job. He was on the podcast last year with us, one of our favorite guests, not only for the knowledge but the banter. Just an awesome dude. And yeah, this will be fun to see from some of the names we broke down this week how Nick's list shapes up on Pitcher List as well. So any closing thoughts here, Steve, before we wrap?
What are you making of Bobby Miller's first start this year and his 5 strikeouts or 2 innings,
Oh
throwing
my.
98 and averaging 2 miles an hour more on his slider, getting some whiffs on the curveball? Are we back in
Yeah.
there?
Intrigued for sure. I mean, he's like my Eugenio Suarez of the pitching side. That I was out at the top 80 overall pick last
Yeah.
year, but when he was ADP, God knows what it was this year, like 600. Yeah, I've got what league is that I've got him in? I've got him in my best ball double up, so
Nice.
that'll optimize that one right in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it, Steve, and I also like that Freddie Freeman had a homer there, so I didn't go like 3 for 40 with no homers tonight. So I like that. Yeah, like I said, now that we're just on bonus time here, I
Got a
did the
question
ad.
from Eddie in the chat if
Oh
you
yeah,
want
what do we
to
got?
tackle that one. Yeah.
Yeah, should I hold on to Kumar Rocker? Yes, I'm in a very deep league, and Kumar has been much hyped over the years as a prospect, but the K's are not there, and he's not looked great. Do I drop him? Hard to know without knowing. Like you said, there's not a lot on the free agent wire, but I personally would be open to moving on from Kumar Rocker just because of the time of year that it is, and some of these are just sprouting up from the ground. For what it's worth, on the Quinn Matthews note, he got an injury too, so
Yeah.
he will not be forcing anyone out of the Cards lineup, for what that's worth. But yeah, Steve, what do you think on the Rocker question?
Yeah, I mean, in an 18-team league, which I think Eddie was referencing earlier, like, I don't think you're going to find guys with much more upside than Rocker, right? A guy that was a sleeper for 10 and 12-team leagues, despite a rocky start, no pun intended there. So it would be hard for me. And I'm assuming this is redraft too. I think you referenced that earlier. But I don't think there's many more guys with more upside than Rocker that would be available. That being said, I don't know how much longer Rocker is going to be in the rotation, and I could see you moving on for that. Who did they sign in the offseason? They had I think he started today, and Patrick Corbin, and he actually pitched pretty well versus the Angels. So I don't know. He may not be long for that rotation, but as long as he's in there, I'd kind of want to just have him on my roster. Maybe not start him all the time, just because we saw it in small samples last year. Like, Rocker does have potential to be someone that could have a 10 strikeout game out of nowhere, and you'd be interested again. I know there's been some weird stuff going on with Rocker's pitching exchange. He threw like all sinkers last time, like didn't really throw many sliders even, I think, which was absolutely curious, considering how good that pitch was last year. But it's hard, I know, to keep guys on that you're not necessarily excited about starting or don't even want to start, even especially in a league that deep. But I think Rocker does have the upside, despite the horrible start, to hold on to in a league that deep. In 10 and 12s, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Move on. But
It's just
18-team league, like, I don't
this
know.
time of year, though. I mean, it's like there's a David Festa popping up, Bobby Miller tonight.
Are
Like,
those guys available in 18-team leagues? I don't think so.
Dolander. I guess it depends how deep the rosters are, but
True.
yeah, like Cody Bradford will be back in the summer, and probably they'll make way for him in some capacity. So yeah, I know what you're saying. It's tough to gauge without knowing how deep each of the teams are and everything, but there's upside there for Rocker. I think if it's like a 30 player roster or deeper, then yeah, you got to hold on to him. But if some of those other guys are out there, so yeah, we'll see how Rocker does. I know, Steve, you probably got. I think I was in as well on some of the deeper ones. Let me see.
Yeah,
Oh
I
no, I
actually
didn't
didn't
end
get.
up. I
I
didn't end
did.
up with a single share. Wow.
Yeah, I
He was
didn't.
on
I
my
didn't
list.
get much Rocker either. I got some lighter, which I'm happy about, but and that's also another reason why Rocker's probably making one more start, right? Once lighter's back from his blister, um, he may get the boot there, and yeah, especially with um Bradford coming back. Yeah, did I get a Rocker share? Yeah, yeah, I got two. He's in my Earth team, which is probably a potential drop, and then NFBC 50s. So, yeah, probably is going to be a drop for me this week in a 15 team league. So, yeah, it's tough, but still think there is some upside.
And from the names he dropped in the chat, I wouldn't be too excited to move on from Rocker
maybe
some of those
Logan
guys.
Anderson. Maybe he's getting called up, and I think is here for a start, or should be starting soon. Might as well find out for that. I think that would probably be a move that I could see making, but I still think Rocker has more upside than Logan Henderson.
Yeah, overall.
Yeah.
But Brewers do a pretty good job. So yeah, but good question, and thanks for joining that. I appreciate the comments throughout too. That signs us out though, guys, for episode 175, talking pitching values, looking at pitching changes. So thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back next week, same time, Wednesday night, and the podcast coming out on Thursday. Until then, thanks for talking baseball with us.
Thanks, guys. Later.